Alright, in today's video I'm going to be talking about high FOC heavy arrow builds. I've been on this journey for a few months now, and it's been a long road. It's the first time I've ever built my own arrows, the first time I've ever taken the opportunity to try to do a little bit of tweaking and working on my bow setup. I've always been the type that bought a bow, went to the archery store, they set me up with some 340 grain Twizzlers. I jumped around a little bit with some broadheads, did what most archers out there do. This year decided that it was time that I start taking a little bit of ownership and wanted to build a high FOC heavy arrow. So what I did was, after watching several episodes of the Ranch Fairy on his heavy arrow build, I ordered some day 6 arrows, a 250 spine and a 300 spine, and I ordered the Ranch Fairy test kit from Ethics. And what it is there's 2 of each, 100 grain, 125, 150, 175, and 200. And you throw one on the 250 spine, one on the 300 spine, and you shoot through all of the different field point weights, and you try to find the best combination, and you land on 1 or 2 combinations, and then you tweak those. Through that process, I struggled with getting good arrow flight. This was my very first time at the range, and as you can see, I had some pretty significant paper tears. I didn't have any bullet holes. I then went to Nock tuning those day 6 arrows, thinking maybe it was a Nock tune issue, and started getting a little bit better with some of my shots, but I still had some pretty significant paper tears. But I did start seeing some bullet holes, so I was feeling a little more confident, but I was still pretty frustrated. Through this process, I ended up reaching out to Troy Fowler, aka the Ranch Fairy, and was communicating with him, and he gave me some pointers, some things I should try. I also reached out to Nate with Average Jack Archery, and he gave me some really good tips as well. Nate actually asked me to jump on a call with him, and we kind of walked through some of the specs of my bow, took some measurements, just did some things that I wasn't sure how to do myself. And due to watching the Ranch Fairy, the Hunting Public, Average Jack Archery, Sean's Outdoor Adventures, some of these guys that are really in tune with their bows, I decided that it was time to do something different and time to take a little bit of responsibility for my setup. On June 4th, I ended up, after making some tweaks and adjustments to my bow, I ended up shooting and getting some really good, almost perfect bullet holes. I also took the time to go through John Dudley's School of Nock, and I started really focusing on my form and trying to improve myself as an archer. It was a lot of fun working on the bow and doing the bear shaft tuning and doing the School of Nock and talking with Troy and talking with Nate and really trying to learn and understand archery in general, form, my bow setup, my arrow setup, and it's been a fun process. Just this month, a few days ago, I did another paper tune after shooting weeks of just shooting the target, and really started dialing in and getting some consistency. Okay, so here's where we're at. I've been talking with Troy Fowler, the Ranch Fairy, as well as Nate from Average Jack Archery. They've been helping me out tremendously with this tuning process. The archery community is just a great community, and those guys are extremely helpful. So if you ever have any archery questions, bow tuning questions, arrow tuning questions, that type of thing, I would definitely touch base with either one of those two. Through my last correspondence with Nate, he suggested that I move my rest up a little. He noticed a slight Nock high paper tear in my bullet holes. It was very slight, so he told me just to move very minimally, just small increments at a time, and try to eliminate that Nock high tear. Alright, so today's a big day. I have my half dozen day 6 arrows. Got all my centric outserts installed. Got my 150 grain field points. So I'm going to Nock tune all these arrows, get them ready for my fletchings. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I put a Sharpie mark on the one side of each Nock. This side's clear. This side I put the spot on it, and that will always face up. And as I turn the Nock, once I get a sweet spot, I'll mark the side of the shaft. I'll know that that's the Nock index for perfect arrow flight. These are my first few shots, and this was my last shot, but that's pretty close to a bullet hole. So now I'm just going to start turning the Nock in real small micro adjustments. I was doing quarter turns. Still a pretty good hole, just a very slight Nock right tear. That may be the best I get, but I'm just going to keep trying. If I end up going all the way back around to that spot, it might just be a rest adjustment. Alright, so I made my rest adjustment and took one last shot, the shot that circled, and I got a perfect bullet hole. So this arrow is done. Okay, it's not perfect, but it's close enough that the fletchings will take care of the rest of this. Some of these real small tears are probably due to me and not due to the bow and the setup, because I've shot each arrow multiple times and I've gotten bullet holes with them multiple times. I tried to get one last shot with each arrow to get a bullet hole, just because I thought it would look cool. But I think some of it's fatigue, but I'm real happy with that. This is what my target looked like for my first round with each arrow. I circled the bullet hole after I adjusted the Nock and got a perfect bullet hole, and then I did a follow-up shot. So if you see some bullet holes in there that don't have circles around them, that's because I did a follow-up shot just to confirm the bullet hole. So now I'm ready to put some fletchings on. Okay, so here's where I'm at with the process. With the broadheads on, if I simply align the quick fletch to the broadhead, I don't have good string clearance. The centric inserts are tuned to the arrow when I have the broadheads all the way screwed in. They don't sit completely vertical. So if I line the blazer vanes up with the broadhead and I look through my riser as well as my cables, the preferred string clearance is not there. So I have to adjust my boning true fletch vanes to the best clearance, and hopefully we'll still have perfect arrow flight due to all of the other tuning that I've done. It shouldn't make any difference with the arrow flight if I don't have my blazer vanes perfectly aligned with my broadheads. In a perfect world, yeah, you would want everything lined up perfect, but if you have to choose, I would rather choose cable clearance and rest clearance than having my blazer vanes perfectly aligned with my broadhead. So that's where I'm at. So I'm at the process now where I've marked every one of my blazer vanes with my Nock tune, so I know exactly where I need to put them when I dip them into the water. So what I had to do was I had to mark where my Nock was and then align my fletching to that mark before dipping it into the water. All right, well, I'm all set. I have all my 250 spine day 6 arrows, centric outserts tuned, Nock tuned, have my boning, blazer vein, true fletch arrows all fletched, and have them aligned and tuned to the riser and cables of the bow. So I'm ready to hit the range and make sure I have broadhead flight that matches my field tip flight. Then all I have to do is switch out my nocturnals come hunting season, and I should have perfect arrow flight. Appreciate you guys watching. Hopefully it's been helpful, and maybe you've learned something along the way. This is the first time I've done it, and it was a learning process for sure. I want to thank the Ranch Fairy, and I want to thank Average Jack Archery for all the help. They helped me tremendously throughout this process. So just a shout out to those two. Thank you guys. All right, have a good one.